Sie ist sozusagen eine Botschafterin des Champagners und sie wird uns dann heute die Weine ein bisschen erklären, mit vielleicht uns noch ein paar Geschichten zu der Geschichte von Maison Lanson ein bisschen erzählen. Und ja, und damit haben wir wieder hier ein Dream-Team, hier, wir drei, wir tanzen wieder Ballett, ja. We dance a little bit of ballet because we have only little places here, so no, you can come here, don't worry. I know you would like more on the left side, but you know, I can perfectly understand that. Because she's from Sicily, so I'm from Sicily too. But I think it's better if you stay between us. I think it's a better idea, yes. Okay, then let's start. I think the wines are going to be poured, and while the champagnes are going to be poured, I will... Yes, I know. Okay, während die Champagner eingeschenkt werden, nehmen wir die Gelegenheit und erzählen schon mal, stellen erstmal den Hervè vor. The tea is going to say some words about himself, and then Chiara, you can continue to tell a little bit about the history of the Maison Lanson, and then we take it from there. Hervè, would you like to start to say something about yourself? Do you want to start? Okay, Chiara. Okay, ladies first.
Hello, welcome everybody, and it's for me an honor to present today the Maison Lanson for this special tasting because we have the chance to taste 4 exclusive champagne, which are 4 vintages of the Cuvée de Prestige Noble Cuvèe, and these 4 champagne are 4 out of 10 produced in 30 years. So it's a very special tasting, so I want to thank Monsieur Hervè Dantan, which is here with us, and we have the possibility to present what is also the style of the Maison Lanson. And Hervè Dantan joined in Lanson in 2013 and became chef de cave after the chef de cave that created the Noble Cuvèe in 1979, Jean-Paul Gandon. Today we have the opportunity to talk about the history of one of the most ancient maisons of the Champagne, which is Lanson, that started, his foundation is in 1760, and had a very familiar story since their start. Just to introduce what was Champagne at the time and what is and about Champagne today in Lanson, the Maison was founded in 1760 by the family de la Motte, which is also now renowned for his production. Maison de la Motte in the early 18th century started to produce, but was Nicolas Louis de la Motte, the son of the founder, that started the production in 1798 with the symbol of the cross of the Order of Malta, which now today you see in all the bottles of Lanson, and it's a heritage and a symbol of the long history that this maison carry on in the decades of Champagne. The name Lanson arrived in 1801 when the maison had the person Jean-Baptiste Lanson, which was a farmer in Champagne, and started to collaborate with Nicolas Louis de la Motte. And the first start with the great expansion to the export has been in 1882 with Victor Marie Lanson. Victor Marie Lanson has been tributed as a fundamental role, because he traveled across Europe and reached the UK, and established the first contracts with the export in UK, and let the Maison Lanson the official supplier of the court of England with a confirmation of Queen Victoria. So all the history of Lanson is a prestigious history and tells about great achievements. And one of the most important of the recent time was in 1937, when Victor Lanson changed the name of the non-vintage cuvée and called it Black Label, with a vision of marketing that at that time was not common, and so enabled Maison Lanson for the export in all the world. So he contributed to became famous in the world. The other recent history is pretty linked to the vineyards, and that's why I'd love to speak about terroir with Hervè Dantan, because the Maison Lanson is linked with the Pinot Noir, and today we are going to taste like a little alien in this production, because it's based on Chardonnay. So I want to ask you if you can tell something about the style of the Maison Lanson, and how this style is recognizable from the non-vintage to this perfect shape of Noble Cuvèe.
Thank you. Hello. So I'm very happy to be here today to talk about Maison Lanson and to talk about different details of Noble Cuvèe. So this cuvée, you told, is an homage to Chardonnay, whereas Lanson is maybe a little bit more well known for Pinot Noir. But Chardonnay are also very important in the range. And with the very long story of Lanson, for example, the vintage have always been elaborated with nearly 0.5% of Pinot Noir and 0.5% of Chardonnay, to show that Chardonnay is also very important. Pinot Noir is in high proportion, in fact, in the range, in Black Label, in Rosé, Ivory and White Label. On the other cuvée, we are between 0.5% of Chardonnay and sometimes 75% of Chardonnay, like Noble Cuvèe. So the style of Lanson is something that is very important to understand. In fact, Lanson has, we can say that we are one of the rare brands that has always been faithful to the traditional taste of champagne. I explain, in fact, you know that in champagne you can do or not do the malolactic fermentation, and until the end of the 60s in Champagne, nearly all the champagne producers used to do malolactic fermentation. And with the new technologies, the winery, in the cellars, with the increasing of sales as well, many producers began to do malolactic fermentation in the 60s. Because it was easier, because it was also a way to sell bottles a little bit quicker, and only few brands decided to keep the non-malolactic style. So Lanson is one of those, and Lanson today is always faithful to this special style that is mainly wines elaborated without malolactic fermentation. And it's important to understand, because when you avoid malolactic fermentation, you are going to have wines that are always expressing a lot of freshness, a lot of salinity, minerality, wine that will be more crispy. And it is the Lanson style. We are always focusing, whatever will be the cuvée, on the fruit, the freshness, the delicacy, of course, and a wine that will be always very crispy and we say very refreshing. That's the Lanson style.
Another thing that I want to underline is that Lanson has in this idea of champagne, so the freshness and the fruitiness, has always been selecting the right grape for the right cuvée. So it's the work of the chef de cave, and is difficult also to be truthful to the style of the maison, but also to meet the vintages, to face what a vintage offer to the chef de cave. Vuoi tradurre questa parte?
No, vai.
Okay. So what happens is that, for example, for the Noble Cuvèe, the Maison Lanson has decided to produce only 10 vintage on the 30 harvest that they had the chance to produce it. And another important thing is that the grapes selected to produce these Noble Cuvèe are not fixed. It's not a recipe that it's always the same, but it's linked to the Grand Cru villages in the Côte de Blanc and in Montagne de Reims. So we will tell you during the tasting which are the characteristics of the vintage, and we will explain also the grapes that are inside the assemblage.
So the first
perfect play.
Chiara told you only 10 vintage in the last 30 years. In fact, Noble Cuvée have been created with the first vintage 1979. And with a long story of Lanson, the first classic vintage have been created in 1904. The Maison decided to do a special cuvée only in 1979, and for the classic vintage, it was a blend already of nearly 50% of Pinot Noir, 50% of Chardonnay, but a wine that was always expressing a lot of freshness. For this special cuvée, Noble Cuvée, Lanson decided to do a cuvée that was an homage to the finesse, not the richness, not the power, but a wine that must be always very delicate when it's young,
it's 2000 now, yeah?
It's very old. So the idea was to use at first Grand Cru from Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and at first Chardonnay. So the blends are always composed by 70% of Chardonnay and 30% of Pinot Noir, and wines are chosen for their delicacy and their salinity.
Since I think someone started to taste the wine, we will start with the first Noble Cuvée you have in the glass, which is Noble Cuvée 2002. Okay. A few things about the production. So you can choose the parcel when you have parcels in your cellars. So first of all, Lanson chooses the different wines for the assemblage, because the vinification in Lanson is mainly separated by village. So that's the first point in the production. Second point, the idea is to have finesse and elegance. So